Well, good afternoon. The second part of the Constitutional Committee meeting today, well, we started at 3 and we finished. I've just actually left the committee because I didn't need to sit in for the final bit. But the initial part was a presentation by Mr. Verhofstadt, who is the European Parliament's chief negotiator in terms of the Brexit deal, alongside with Mr. Barnier. And it was a very, very interesting meeting. He outlined the stance that he was going to be recommending to the Parliament in terms of trying to preempt what our Prime Minister, Theresa May, will be bringing to the negotiating table once she's invoked Article 50. He brought into context the fact that the invoking of Article 50 is likely to be in early March. And he talked about how the Parliament needed to take control and start preparing the parliamentarians with input from the various committees, input from the committee chairs and other associated bodies, in terms of actually starting to put together a package that would guide everybody here in the Parliament in terms of how they respond to the United Kingdom's position on Brexit. And so the whole title of this afternoon was based around the constitutional relationship of the United Kingdom with the European Union and the consequences of the results of the referendum the 23rd of June 2016. Now, the very first thing that I picked up was a very substantive report that has been produced by the Internal Research Service here within the Parliament. And I would recommend that everybody takes a look at that if they can online. I, in turn, will be taking copies back to my office in Dorking in Surrey, and you're welcome to make contact with me on Diane.James at the European Union website email address, and request a copy, and we'll do our level best to get one to you. What he also highlighted, though, and I mean Mr. Verhofstadt here, is some of the key questions that he has produced and which he believes various parts of the European Parliament and the whole organisation of the European Union needs to start tackling in terms of being able to respond to the United Kingdom's position. But let's just take a moment to reflect on where the United Kingdom is, because this was Mr. Verhofstadt trying to, if you like, bounce the Constitution Committee forward. He was trying to get them to take a much more proactive stance. He was trying to get the European Union off a reactive position. Now, the United Kingdom has produced its white paper on how it intends to proceed with the negotiations for the United Kingdom to leave the EU, the European Union. However, the detailing within the paper was thin, everyone has to admit that, and it has been very difficult at this stage to make an informed judgment on how the United Kingdom will deal with the European Union and its institutions after withdrawal from the bloc. This may well be further complicated by the positions adopted by the European Council, especially if there are changes to its makeup due to the national elections being held in France, Germany, the Netherlands, Bulgaria, Hungary and possibly Italy. And I can't even go on further without mentioning, supposing something happens in terms of Greece defaulting and being forced out of the European Union. Now, all of this could have a significant impact upon the deal on offer. Now, furthermore, the deal itself may well be subject to national referenda by member states before it can be approved at council level. And finally, the United Kingdom will also have to take into account the position adopted by the European Parliament. So we are a long, long way from being able to accurately predict the post-Brexit relationship. The key stage for the United Kingdom will be the Great Repeal Act, which will take all of the acquis onto the UK statutory books, and individual items of EU-born legislation will be considered on their own merits by the UK Parliament. Once we have knowledge of which regulations the UK is likely to maintain, only then can we establish the management and supervision of those regulations. This is the key area that will define the relationship between the United Kingdom government and the European Commission. And at the current time, we have no idea whatsoever if the UK intends to remain an active partner in the following key EU policy areas. It could be, for instance, the emissions trading system, subject to a big vote next week in Strasbourg, the European Energy Union, the Capital Markets Union, and the Digital Single Market. We would also need to consider our relationship with the European Investment Bank and its portfolio of investments. Now, taking account of the white paper, taking control of our own laws. The government reiterates that removing the European Court's role in British political life, like migration, is a priority above any considerations about trade or economic prosperity. Here the government concedes that without the European Court of Justice, ECJ, some form of arbitration will be required to rule on disputes between the United Kingdom and the European Union on any trade deals. However, as with so many other areas, what eventually may take the place of the ECJ has to be agreed by both sides, and that there may still be cases where a European panel can override the United Kingdom laws, just as the ECJ can do now. What about strengthening the Union? Despite much discussion and meetings with Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish leaders, and including, as I might add, with Gibraltar representatives, there is no answer to the problem of how the United Kingdom government can remove Scotland and Northern Ireland from the EU without the consent of their peoples, nor any substantive response to the Scottish Government's proposal that Scotland be allowed to remain inside the single market after Brexit. Moving on, what about protecting our strong historic ties with Ireland and maintaining the common travel area? There is no concrete idea of how the free travel zone, which has been in place since 1921, can survive Brexit. Controlling immigration. Despite the message that the referendum gave on immigration and Mrs May's pledge to fulfil the expectation, there are no proposals or figures yet for light immigration, EU or non-EU citizens levels post-Brexit. And securing rights for the European Union nationals in the UK and UK nationals resident, for whatever reason, in the EU. No progress. Ensuring free trade with European markets. No progress. Securing new trade agreements with other countries. All speculation at this stage. And cooperating in the fight against crime and terrorism. That's likely to remain part of the Europol, but no indication on the European arrest warrant. Delivering a smooth, orderly exit, divorce from the European Union. Realpolitik suggests that a transitional period is the most likely outcome. And let me pick up on just a couple of those. Mr Verhofstadt was keen to make plain to the Constitution that the transitional period could last for years to come. This is the European Union genuinely wanting to just kick the ball or kick the tin down the streets. It doesn't want to see that Brexit ink on that document and see the European Union lead. And yes, as ever, they keep on raising these issues about whether the United Kingdom leaves the European Union as a total entity, or whether only England leaves, Northern Ireland stays, Scotland stays in, and what happens to the ERA and Northern Ireland border. Again, far too much interference by the European Union for my liking at a Constitution Committee level, particularly when, as I highlighted to Mr Verhofstadt, in over 7 meetings thus far, all they keep wanting to hear is the Europhile revenge on the UK for its decision. They don't want to hear the other side of the story and why voters voted as they did. But there you are. There's a briefing from Brussels. Hope to speak to you and see you again soon. Thank you.